Director of Planning, Kerala Agricultural University, has 13 years of experience in teaching, research and extension activities in the field of agricultural entomology. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Berin Pathrose. And we'll be having the speaker on the stage, Shri Pranay Verma, Chief Researcher, Hitachi India. Shri Pranay, active involvement in business incubation, innovation and data-driven solution expert, worked as Senior Staff Software Engineer at IBM, ISL and Software Developer at Wipro Technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Pranay Verma on the stage. And they will be discussing about the Fireside Chat Smart Agriculture when tech meets and transform farming.
Thank you for the introduction. Last 2021 during February and March, Department of Agriculture, Government of Kerala has organized a hackathon, Agri Hackathon. And I was part of, as a representative of Kerala Agriculture University, I was part of that hackathon as a judge. So there are several topics in that hackathon, and the most number of participants that we got in that hackathon was in smart agriculture, IoT based systems for automating agriculture. So that's the interest that startups give to agriculture. But few days back, when we were having a discussion with Pranay just mentioned one thing that was highly catchy to me. He mentioned that among the different sectors, agriculture is the most static one with respect to adoption of technologies, whereas the other sectors are completely dynamic. I clearly agree to it. If you see different sectors, the adoption of new technologies, say we are discussing about IoT, there are several technologies, but the field level adoption, how the farming community adopts it, that adoption levels are extremely low, especially in our country. There are several reasons to it. But today we have Pranay, who is working with Hitachi. When we discussed a few days back, Pranay was telling Hitachi, you may be knowing about heavy equipments and air conditioners, but you may not be knowing about the work Hitachi is doing with the farming community, how smart solutions can be brought to agriculture. So actually, Hitachi is working in our country along with the farming community, and they have a pilot model implemented in Karnataka. So we will just hear that story, how this IoT, I told that it was not, the adoption levels are extremely low, but here we have a case study where Hitachi is implementing along with several government organizations, including Government of Karnataka, University of Agriculture Science, which is a state agriculture university in Karnataka, and how they are adopting and how they are helping the farming community in that stage. What is the model they are working on? So, Pranay, can you share that experience?
Thank you, Dr. Berin, for this very warm introduction. And thank you, Kerala Startup Mission, for having me here. And I very much feel grateful to be sitting on this dais and talking about some of our work. So before I talk about agriculture, farming and all that, let me briefly introduce Hitachi as an organization to all of you. We have around 100 years of R&D presence. Of course 120 years of the industry, but 100 years of R&D presence, and that talks about the kind of products that we have been able to launch. So we started with a motor, industrial motor, right? That was the starting point for Hitachi. Inside Hitachi Prefecture in Japan, and over the years we created the first human-machine interface. Right? It was in 1910 we realized that, and then now we have the high-speed trains. We have the very fast storage systems. We also have the proton beam therapy, the PBT systems, which we have for the healthcare. So there are diverse products, and that's how we diversified, vertically as well as horizontally. And talking about Hitachi in India, yes, we do a lot of social innovation activity. and agriculture is one of them. And I'm sure through the discussions now I'll be very happy to sell the philosophy of what we have. And we know the startup ecosystem is very vibrant in Kerala. Last year we did a hackathon here. It was not a hackathon, it was an ideathon where we saw a lot of participation by the startups. And one of the startup was really impressive. They used the drone technology to survey, remote sensing, and all those fields was getting into the way the pesticides used to be spray and all that. Very interesting work. So given all of that, agriculture is a very complex topic. It's complex because one, there is science, agro-science, very deep-rooted domain research and all which is happening there. Second, there is technology which is available. I think IoT and all those talks which we listened, technology is there, but still it's a cross-domain entry into agriculture. Now the way we make it sustainable, the way the technology is adopted by the community in rural, these are the areas of interest to Hitachi. We are exploring this. And we are doing this together with institutes of eminence. We are working with the Department of Agriculture, as you mentioned, right? We are working a lot with universities of agricultural sciences, because by far they bring in the domain knowledge. They have all the expertise with them. We are working with other academic institutes like Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. We are working with them. The NRSC is working very closely because they have been doing agriculture for quite some time. And with their the amount of applications that they created with the GIS platform, it's very impressive in the way that all these public sector units are coming forward, and us we are just sitting together doing a lot of brainstorming all of this. But if we see all the farmer is at the center of this revolution, and how do we touch down the entire the life cycle event that goes around him is important. Now, while I say this, there are three key factors in terms of technology that is important. One, if you see, there is technology around how do we do agriculture better. For example, hydroponics. Right? That's a way to do it better in terms of how do we utilize the resources, other resources to make agriculture itself improve. Second, how do we make the produce available to the consumers? Vertical farming and all that, things happening around that, or market identification services. And the third is the cross-sectoral area. Now we are talking about drones. Drones was not created for agriculture, but people found a way to apply drone technology here. Now, while the technology is there, how do we make it sustainable? How do we make the drone technology so much so capable that everybody is able to subscribe to it? It becomes a service model rather than as a captive model. So this is what primarily we have been surveying and looking at, and I want to talk about some of the work that we did here. Now, we worked with state government of Gujarat some time back, roughly 10 years back, and in India we are not new to calamities. It comes, it happens and goes, but it's very difficult to monitor what was the effect of the calamity, and in return you get the benefits passed on to the farmers in terms of insurance and all that. So we had a GIS platform. Using the GIS platform, we could survey the land. We could say, what areas are affected, not affected. What was the so we could attach evidences to issues.
Whether it was monitored, manually monitored and logging into the device, or remotely, or drone-based monitoring, or anything.
No. So the GIS platform was deployed. Okay. And through remote sensing and the GIS platform, we were able to.
Oh, through remote sensing.
We were able to do the survey. So all this was there. We didn't have to do anything new. We just retrieved the information that was required, and that is all that is needed. Right? See, everything should be at a low cost. If we are going to invest something in a technology and then be able to deliver something, it doesn't sustain at all. Right? So the GIS platform was there, remote sensing data was there. We worked together with agencies, partners, and all. We could retrieve the information, and through machine learning. Right? At those times, artificial intelligence was not so widely accepted. But machine learning, yes. So we were able to generate those reports, and those reports are very handy, the government, because they could do then proactive activity in terms of planning how the disbursement should happen, how much price should be attached to the commodities, how the distribution channels could be there, and they could even think about how much money they should pay back to the insurance companies and things like that. Now that was something which we did 10 years back. Now if you look at the situation where we are in today, and especially the pandemic which has accelerated the technology adoption, now we could do wonders, right? So here what we are doing is, it's all about how the farmers are engaging with the system. Because if we see the KVKs are always working with the farming community.
The last section of the audience may not be knowing what is a KVK. Krishi Vigyan Kendras are actually, KVKs or Krishi Vigyan Kendras, actually they are farmers scientist hubs, farm science hubs located in every district of the country, funded 100% funded by the central government. We have a group of about seven scientists, limited number of scientists, very small group, but they cater to the scientific needs in agriculture in every district. So they can address local issues locally. That's the advantage of a KVK.
Right. And the importance is that there's a lot of regional influence in the way farming does. Now you don't teach a farmer how farming should happen, right? They don't. That's their job. It's been passed on to them from their ancestors and all that. But how do they use the technology? How do they use the innovation in seeds? How do they use the innovation in the new kinds of pesticides coming, or let's say the new ways of farming and all that? That's the real role of KVK. And I think our job as technology enablers are to fill this information gap that exists. There is definitely an information gap, right? There's all the research which is happening, and there is the activity which is happening on the ground. Now there is variation in this, and our idea around this intervention that we have planned is, how do we bridge this gap? And one important aspect came out of this activity was, although there is advisory, there's personalized advisory that is created in past one, but you never know what the farmer actually did, right? And you can't really go about and querying everybody in terms of, have you done this, have you done that? That's not practical. And even the digital literacy is low in the farming community, rural community. There are families which may have a smartphone because of the pandemic and education and all that, and support coming from the government, but still the digital literacy is low. So we went back in terms of identifying what kind of interfaces are necessary. We talked about assistive user interfaces. We talked about text to speech and speech to text, and natural language processing and all that. So Hitachi has been doing vernacular language for quite some time, and we do have all our partners. So we've built in all these ideas into the interfaces that is presented to the farmers.
So that means a farmer who is receiving an advisory, if he needs to address a query, he can address it in the local language, and it gets automatically.
It gets fit in the system, as well as he need not open the interface at all. He can just voice control and be able to listen to what is happening, right? But the critical point is, these ideas come in not sitting into an IT park sector and then visualizing what is the requirement of the farmers. Over a period of time is the activity that we did. We did a lot of seminars with them. We went on ground to understand what is working, and plus we had the knowledge of what we did in the past, right? Assimilating all of this, it's all about the way the farmers engage with the system. And I tell you, farmers, of course, advisories and all, they help them. But the critical question for the farmers is, when do they get the money back? If let's say they are growing something, they do not want their produce to be sitting in somewhere, not generating enough money. They want that produce to be sold. And more often what happens is, so we were speaking to University of Vice Chancellor. He said, the mango season is very fantastic this time. It's fantastic, and there's a bigger problem attached to it. The problem is, everybody will try to sell. If everybody tries to sell, they may not get the return they are expecting. That's the core issue. Now, in order to address that, they may want to anticipate and then guide the farmers in terms of what should be really grown. And there's a very proactive thing. So the question is not really, about farmers itself. It's about the ecosystem around it to be guided.
Whether you connect with this, say, we talked about mango, whether you connect with the mango farmers, with the industry, processing industry, or whether they are part of the platform.
So it's still in a pilot mode, this activity, and the reason why I say it's in a pilot mode is we are kind of experimenting what works and what doesn't work. Because if you see, the actual transactions is done by the farmer producer organizations or by the KVK organizing Krishi Melas and all. That's where the real trade and all happens. But what we are trying to do here is, how do we convert all this information flow into transaction flows? And given that purpose, We are just trying to understand what works and what doesn't work. What we understood so far is what doesn't work. For example, right now, market discovery happens at a. There are only few parameters that determine what markets are insected, and those parameters are whether I know that person or not. It's a very physical space. The activity is happening at a very physical space, and we want to digitize it. That is the idea behind our, how we look at this community.
Because farmers are usually, they know the trader well, they have a very long relationship with the trader. They are not used to this digital platforms. That's why
I told you it's a very static ecosystem there. Not that the farmer doesn't want to explore more, just that they are captive in terms of how they have been working. It's the same situation with cash. Right? They're used to dealing with cash. So that's why the incentives are not being passed on in terms of how the digital currency adoption and all happens. But I think we'll get to that because we had a similar situation when we went to Southeast Asia. They had very similar situations, right? And when we worked with them, we realized one thing: digitizing the entire. Is it okay? We realized that digitizing the process is one, but how do we give assurance in terms of the process that is being followed or the methodology is being followed is very transparent. That is important, and this transparency, in some sense, we'll see a lot of people are introducing blockchain in terms of how the information is being captured and being passed on to the network. Now, while blockchain is very good at it, but blockchain comes with a certain cost in terms of its implementation and all that. So those are the areas where we are working with our partners to identify what components of data should be sent. Because take this, we don't have a agricultural data platform, and that is really the key. Because if we say we have IoT, the data is there, and that's very localized data in terms of the weather information and all that. Now, if you're able to capture the agriculture data combined with all these data, all these insights are very important and useful for, let's say, the gate services, the farm gate services, or the input services to connect with the farmers and all that. So this is where India Urban Data Exchange is kind of visualizing an agriculture data exchange. I think they have tied up with some government in Telangana as well as across India. So we would like to work with them, and we are also discussing this possibility where we can come together.
Are you monitoring how many districts you are now covering in Karnataka?
We started with a couple of districts right now as a pilot mode. We are working with them, and we have done a lot of work previously with the other state governments.
Are you monitoring any, say, soil parameters like moisture or any other thing real time, so that your system is getting fully integrated or something?
Right. So we are getting all these data parameters from Bhuvan, which is NRSC's data. So they are supporting us in this activity.
So remote sensing data you will get. So
it's coming to the platform.
So instead of installing a sensor in the field, you get the data from the remote sensing platform.
Yeah. So in a way, it has to be a kind of hybrid approach in which this is done. In some cases, what we realize is while the remote sensing data is good, it may not be sufficient.
Okay.
For example, in cases where we want to do drip irrigation,
okay,
there it has to be very accurate in terms of how the remote sensing data is there. But we have to take this multi-pronged approach in terms of how do we realize all this activity. Well, at the end of it, we should think about the business model revolution also. How do we make this total cost of ownership really low in terms of being able to sustain this for a long period of time, right? That's the kind of philosophy.
Can I ask what are the say regarding Indian agriculture adoption of IoT based technologies? What are the opportunities and challenges? According to you, have some experience in this space for the past 10 years. So what are the opportunities? Those who are working in the field in agriculture, they may be curious about to know.
I'm sure. I think IoT has a very powerful story in terms of agriculture. As I mentioned, these sensors, which is measuring the soil parameters. For example, take the use case of fertilizer recommendation. Now, when you recommend a fertilizer, you have to take in the soil nutrient information and all that. Now, typically, there are these centers that will do the soil measurement and prepare the soil for us. But whether the farmers are following that, not sure, right? But soil plays a very important role, and most of the crop loss happens because the soil quality was not good. A farmer was unaware of whether he has to fallow the land or he has to do the plantation. These are critical questions that the farmer should answer. And if we are able to guide the farmers in terms of how they should prepare the land, nothing like it, right? And in order to prepare the land, we have to measure, we have to continuously measure the soil micronutrient status as well as macronutrient. Now, if we are able to deploy sensors to that, very good, right? We can do that, and we can, and these have to be measured in terms of how we are deploying it. But maintenance of these sensors are an expensive affair. And if today I talk about, there are only 10% farmers who are well-to-do will be able to bear the cost of maintaining or owning such sensors, and the remaining 90%. Now, if we have to plan certain things, we have to take into consideration those marginalized or low, small landholding farmers and all that. In that sense, it has to be a combination of remote sensing as well as a portable way to measure. So there are some academic institutes who have created these portable sensors, and along with their field staff, they're able to measure the nutrition and all that. But how effective is manual, all this? This doesn't work a lot. So these are interesting areas where IoT has a role as well as combined with how do we do remote sensing. And so this is one example which I wanted to talk about. Now drone is an extremely useful technology. By the same thing, the cost of operation of drone is high in terms of how you are using it. Plus the procedures in terms of how the drone surveillance should be utilized in terms of whether you are combining it with your other operational attributes and all. But those things have to be really well devised, and we have been able to operate around 40% of farmlands in North Japan using drone technology, and even we are now inviting one of our group companies, Travanus, to come and operate in India. But the situation here warrants in terms how do we pass on the information to the farming community to run this for us. That's why we are identifying the farmer producer organizations who can be empaneled in terms of operating all these technologies, and in a sense owning it. It has to be a collective. And I think most of the government is kind of also enforcing this strategy to create more and more farmer producer organization, bring in more and more packages of practice in a very sustainable way that can remain within the system itself. And Hitachi is very happy to partner in terms of bringing the technology. And I think the startups that are operating here, I would like to invite you guys to join us and have our discussions. We can help you scale out, and we can do the capacity building exercise for you guys.
Sir, you told about availability and services of IoT technology that you are providing. Are you providing any maintenance? There are startups coming up with technologies, and the maintenance is not available. Service and all. They are providing new models, but service and backup support for that service is not given.
Yeah. No, that is the real challenge if we talk about in this area. Like creating a technology, engineering it, and creating a device is an easy job, right? But how do you do the O&M part? That is where the services attribute should come in, and it's more not about technology. It's more about the business model innovation. So how do you create a profitable business model in terms of you get those continuous service fee, and this is where the cost of operation should be passed on to all the entities that you are participating in this entire stakeholder ecosystem of yours. So consider this. Let's say you are operating for agri-businesses, right? Now in this case, the agri-businesses can own the sensors, and then you can have a service model in terms of operating it. So the devices are free, but then you are generating money out of the services. So those are the effective business models that can exist as of today. So it's all about that, not about so much about thinking about creating new technologies, but as a startup, you have to first think about what is the business model that you should run with. And so, for example, there could be a situation where you can work with agriculture universities that can help you to adopt this technology in a faster and more skilled manner, because they have the the agri extension offices are there, the KVKs are there, and if they endorse the technology that you are providing, can easily be adopted across villages and all that. So you get the economics of scale. That's it.
Thank you.
So, any
Hello, my name is Edwin. We are our company name is Farms, and we are working on automating hydroponic farms and based on IoT. So, fortunately, we have been a part of this agri-hackathon and Hitachi. So, I'm glad that you are here. So, my question I have two questions. One is like we are like automatic hydroponic farm. So, we in Kerala we face an issue like there were many hydroponic farms in like 5 years back, and it's not functioning anymore. And while we go with a rough research, we have been told that there were no specific training given for that specific agriculture practice. So we have developed a system that we can reduce that particular thing, and we can automate the hydroponic farm completely. So how we can collaborate with KVT or Hitachi to bring this technology to next level. So that's one question. And next thing is, what is the hydroponic market currently available in India or in Kerala? We have been a part of Jitex last week, so there is a very huge potential in GCC market, but in terms of Indian market, we are a bit confused. So where we can collaborate with agriculture universities or Hitachi as such to test our device or to bring our device to next level. What are the opportunities that you can provide?
Okay. So maybe I'll take the first question and I'll take the second question. Now, see, your work is a very interesting work. You're working on hydroponics and then adoption of new technologies in terms of managing hydroponics farms. Now, when you decided to work on this technology area, I'm sure innovation drove you to adopt it. But if you see, water is very stressed, multiple areas, right? If you see water in that situation, in order to expand your services and all, I think one way how Hitachi can collaborate with you is, we have these centers which we have created not in India, but other centers, where this is a very thriving business areas, right? And, for example, if you go to Southeast Asia, where there's a lot of water and all, so this is very popular in that sense. And given the advantage that you must have already piloted around these technologies, you can come, you can make a demonstration around what you have done and what you've been able to achieve. I can be your channel to those entities there in order to scale out. And second is, maybe you need to think about not a point solution. You have to think about the whole integrated approach of farming in that sense. Entire farm management as a service is an area which I would ask you to completely focus on. Right. Sure. So I'd like to discuss more. Maybe we can say come offline.
Okay, regarding the market potential and how you can collaborate with agriculture industry. See why the problem with the hydroponics or any other novel technologies is that we have in hydroponics and aquaponics and also aeroponics, even aeroponics, they are popular in those countries where they have a shortage of land, where the weather is not that conducive for growing the crops throughout the year. But here in our country, as of now, maybe after the scenario will change after 10, 15 or 20 years. As of now, we have enough land to produce what we need. So we are growing tomato in a hydroponic system. The cost of 1 kg tomato can reach up to 50 or 60 kg. But at the same time, farmers are selling the produce for even less than ₹1. But widespread adoption on a commercial scale, it may take a bit time. That's the minimum. So as Pranay has rightly pointed out, there are certain markets where we have enough potential for that. So I'll just conclude, I think the time, see, whenever any startup who is working in agriculture, one thing we have to realize is that we should really understand the ground reality. We can have, Hitachi example is very critical. Say, that's what I really pointed out that question, where they are monitoring soil moisture. But instead of installing soil moisture sensors in the districts they are working on, they took the help of National Remote Sensing Center, NRSC data, took out the soil moisture and provide the information to the farmers. So we have to think about local solutions, because whatever solutions what we develop, it has to be adopted by a farming community who are low on resources. As Pranay has rightly, 90% of them may not have the financial muscle to adopt the technologies that we develop. So it should be very frugal innovations, and as our guest speaker has clearly pointed out, our focus should be on group of farmers, not on individual farm, at FPO levels, or in case of here we have say Pathrose assemblies, paddy group farming consortiums and all. So our platform to work with, it should be a group of farmers. Say for vegetables we have UFPCK group of farmers. So that kind of approach will be working instead of focusing on a single farmer, because of the extremely fragmented nature of farming. So with that, I really thank Pranay for enlightening the audience with the work that Hitachi is doing, the way they are doing it in a cost-effective manner, understanding the complexities of agriculture in our country. It may not suit other area solutions may not suit our countries also.
Very interesting what happened here. Thank you, Dr. Berin, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for explaining and sharing the thoughts on smart agriculture when tech meets and transforms farming. And now it's time to give a token of love and appreciation for the moderator, Dr. Berin Pathrose, Director of Planning, Agriculture, Kerala Agriculture. Please hand over to Shri Pranay Verma, Chief Researcher, Hitachi, India. Thank you so much, Pranay, for being with us, and it's time to hand over a small token of love and appreciation for Dr. Berin Pathrose. To do the honors, I would like to welcome Mr. Burjan, Program Head, Kerala Startup Mission. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Shri Pranay Verma and Dr. Berin Pathrose for sharing thoughts on smart agriculture when tech meets and transforms farming.